I sent it to your office.
Good. Well, the inevitable result of impeachment is here. President Trump has been acquitted. The majority of the Senate voted not guilty on both articles. It was evident when this impeachment proceeding began in the House of Representatives, when it began as a purely partisan affair, this was going to be the ultimate conclusion. Today, the Senate followed the rule of law, followed the Constitution. Today, the Senate delivered on our oath and delivered on our duty to demand of any articles of impeachment that they demonstrate treason, bribery, or other high crimes or misdemeanors. The House managers failed to prove their case, and for that reason, the Senate rightfully acquitted President Trump.
Senator Cruz, wondering if you have a reaction to Mitt Romney voting to convict and the push by Don Jr. to have him expelled from the GOP?
I think Mitt's decision was a mistake. I disagree with him on it. At the end of the day, every senator has to make his or her decision as to how we will comply with the obligations of the Constitution.
Senator, 850 legal scholars said that Trump did commit impeachable acts. Who all did you guys consult other than Alan Dershowitz?
Well, I got to say, having spent several years teaching as an adjunct professor at the University School of Law, I'm surprised they only found 850 law professors. Law faculties at just about every law school in the country are extraordinarily liberal. They're all on the left, so they would assign that position probably before President Trump was sworn into office. As for that matter, would have most congressional Democrats. Indeed, a number of congressional Democrats were calling for President Trump's impeachment within days of his election, before he'd taken the oath of office, before he'd ever had a phone call with Ukraine, before he'd committed any facts. This was a political impeachment. It was a political impeachment driven by Democrats who were angry at the American people for electing President Trump. And, you know, we saw that last night at the State of the Union. We saw the bitter anger as congressional Democrats refused to applaud for record low unemployment, refused to applaud for 12,000 new factories in America, refused to applaud for record low African American unemployment, record low Hispanic unemployment, record low unemployment for young people and women. And congressional Democrats right now, unfortunately, seem to be just consumed by hatred for President Trump. I think last night was encapsulated by the very end of the speech when Nancy Pelosi stood up and ripped the speech in half. That was a sad, sad moment in the history of the United States Congress. It demonstrated contempt, not just for President Trump, but for the office of the presidency and the American people who elected him. It was certainly not how I behaved when I attended State of the Union addresses by President Obama. I think we owe a certain respect, a certain civility to each other. And I got to say, a party that is simply consumed by hate and not willing to celebrate the victories of the American people, the jobs, the rising opportunity, the rising wages, the rising prosperity of the American people, that's a really unfortunate place we find ourselves.
Do you think it's fair for Senator Romney to be facing calls that he should leave the party over this vote?
Listen, I think in the world of politics, whatever one does, there's criticism, and Mitt Romney ultimately is accountable to the voters of the state of Utah, and he made his decision. As I said, I think it's a mistake. I disagree with him. I believe the constitutional standard that every one of us is obliged to follow is whether or not the House managers demonstrated high crimes or misdemeanors. They didn't meet that standard. And the fundamental reason is that a president always has the authority to investigate credible allegations of corruption. In this case, there was more than sufficient evidence of corruption for the president to ask for an investigation. All right, thank you, guys.